Hello and welcome to the Ground Noise. What about having a little mastering session together? I've recorded an ambient guitar improvisation and already released it on an EP a while ago, some weeks ago. And today I want to look at the mastering project again and see what I did there. But before we start, let me say some words about not my sponsor. Don't click away. No, about my attitude when it comes to mastering. I always master my music, no matter the genre. I see it as a last quality check and actually an enjoyable process because I've learned that it gives me the satisfying feeling that I really did the best I can to beautify the track and make it sound right, at least as listened with my ears in that particular moment when I'm mastering it. Okay, let's go. This is the stereo mix of my ambient guitar improvisation. And the first thing I do is, of course, I set up the markers in the beginning and the end of the file, and I also apply fade-ins and a fade-out. So everything is nice. And the first thing you want to do, of course, is to listen to the music and understand what's going on here, what is it about, and also are there specifications for this genre. Ambient music, we don't need to boost the loudness or something. I don't do that anyway, but I think it's already loud enough. I have a limiter going on. You can see it here in my stereo out. There are some inserts like an equalizer. That's always my first thing in the effect chain. And maybe, it's a good idea to listen to a couple of seconds here so that you get an idea of the music. And that's, of course, always very important so that we understand what it's about. Yeah, maybe it's a good idea to bypass all the effects I'm using here in the stereo out inserts. It's frequency, it's a powerful equalizer in Cubase and a stereo enhancer. And also I use a limiter, of course, and Magneto 2. This is a saturation plugin. I normally don't use saturation plugins very often, but in this case, it's ambient guitar music, and the guitar doesn't have much bass. It doesn't sound very warm. So I've tried to make it sound a little bit warmer, and I've also tried to add some bass with the equalizer. But let's talk about that in a moment. Just listen without all the effects here. So I switched the effects back on, and maybe you could spot some difference in the sound. I could, but I also know that it's very difficult to hear if you never have done it before. I recommend try mastering. If you never mastered your music, try it. Okay, it's very nice to let your stereo file, your stereo mix, rest for a couple of days and then come back with a fresh pair of ears, like I always say, and a clear mindset, a mastering mindset. And it's a very interesting process where you can learn much about sound, and also that the mastering changes are very subtle most of the time. And that's actually what the pros are doing. Sometimes they are doing nothing to the sound. They are just checking the technical standards, for example, minus 14 LUFS or whatever the client wants, and minus 1 dB true peak. This is the requirement for the streaming platforms. But these are almost the only things you have to think about, because all the rest depends on your personal taste and your mood maybe. And you will also quickly learn that you don't need any of these Witchcraft plugins and do it like a pro stuff. I know it sounds very promising to buy more stuff. But you don't have to do it. If you're a rich person, yeah, okay, buy your stuff, buy all the Witchcraft plugins, but you will quickly learn that your music doesn't sound better because of that. Music only sounds better because of your knowledge and the work you put into and your personal taste. And it's also okay to sometimes just mess it up, you know. So now that we talked about the technical standard, let's also check some of the statistics of my file. So I've activated my file here and I open the statistics here under audio. So this gives me a quick overview of the technical numbers here. For example, with the exclamation mark here, integrated loudness is almost -16. So this means it's a bit too quiet. What it really means is that I still have a little bit of headroom to work with, and that's okay. I close this again. And now let's look at the frequency equalizer here. You can see I've tried to boost the lower area here and did some changes. For example, the 3 is about 160 Hertz. This is a frequency that in this part, in this track, really sums up sometimes. You know, it's an ambient track with many notes that are starting to overlay and there's reverb going on, and some frequencies can really start to sound a little bit annoying. So I try to tone that frequency area down with a dynamic EQ. We can see what it does. You see that it's moving, as well as here. Number 5 is also a dynamic equalizer. And you can see the whole spectrum. You can see that this is a very loud area and here. And there is almost no bass going on. Yeah, and another interesting fact is my sweet spot of 6 dB. I never go further or lower than -6 or 6 dB. That's what I mean with subtle changes and also responsible mastering. I don't want to change the whole experience of the track. I want to boost the bass, of course, because it's a little bit weak in this track. See what I can do, but I also understand that there is no bass. It's a track with no bass, okay? It's just a guitar. So it makes no sense to crank it up and try to add something that isn't there. So, and I think the most important thing here is the filter number 3 at around 160, the dynamic filter. I don't want to take too much away. That's the reason for the dynamic filter, so that it can react to the music. That's okay. It's very quiet now. And you know, with an spectrum analyzer, like in the background here, it's very easy to spot those frequencies. And even if it looks really complicated, it's just a matter of seconds, you know, or like minutes. I played the whole track and then I've made some quick decisions. In that moment, it sounded totally fine and better with the equalizer, and so I go with it. It sounds fine. You can close the equalizer and go to the next step, which is in this case a stereo enhancer. Again, very subtle change. It adds a little bit of stereo width, and it's very nice, I think. Let's wait for a louder part. Interesting, right? It's a different listening experience when you work with such subtle changes. It opens up a whole different world. But now let's not get too deep into that. Let's try to add more warmth with the saturation plugin Magneto 2. And I think I can also activate the limiter, because what the limiter does is not really important. It does basically nothing. It only checks for the true peak level of -dB and that we don't cross it. And you can see it already happened, that the true peak is very high in the red numbers. So I can reset it. This should be okay right now with the limiter on. Okay, now I have Magneto 2, the saturation plugin here in Cubase by Steinberg, you know, and I only can tell you that setting this up is also very quickly done. I just listen to the music, play with the buttons, and when I think it sounds cool, I go with it. I'm fine, okay? I'm not looking for perfection, or can we do it even better? No, when it's fine in the moment, it's fine. It's totally okay. So let's see what I did here. Without... Oh man, this is really subtle again. Yeah, now I did a little blind test. I call it a blind A/B test. It's a cool trick. It's maybe I should make a video about such things. I want to make like shorter videos in the future where I focus more on one step, and a blind A/B testing is really important. Yeah, maybe you already know what blind A/B testing means and you have your own experience with that. Let me know how you do it in the comments. I would love to read that. So maybe one word before I continue here. I'm kind of sorry that I didn't release that many videos this year. This year is kind of crazy. I still have so many ideas for videos and video series and concepts and whatever, but so little time, you know, sometimes it's like that. But don't worry, I don't have plans to go anywhere, so it's still a good idea to subscribe to the channel. It's free, and maybe you do it right now so that we can continue with our lives. So this track is a 7:30 long, and I played it like 3 times and made all the changes on the fly. And it's really not that complicated and also not that much work. And believe it or not, it's not just simple because it's a bit simpler, okay? Maybe because it's a very minimal ambient track, but in fact not that different than when you're working with a rock or pop track, because you always work with a stereo mix, okay, with a stereo mix file where everything comes together, and if there are drums or bass or whatever, keyboards and some vocals, it doesn't really change the experience. You have to do the same steps, and Once you understood the genre and what's the song about and what's the sound supposed to be, you do all the little things I did here, one step after another. Maybe sometimes you also work with a multiband compressor, but it's more or less always the same setting and the same workflow, no matter the genre. So in the very last step is actually when I think everything is now good, as it should be. I play the whole track one more time, and then I check the loudness levels and true peak levels and make changes in the limiter if necessary. Yeah, and if you want to master a little bit hotter than -14, many people want to do that because they think it sounds better. Let them be, it's their decision. It's very easy. It's very easy. You just basically, more or less, just turn up the input level of the limiter until you reach the LUFS level you want. Yeah, and to be fair, it's totally fine if you think you should master a little bit hotter than -14. It's totally fine. Many people say that -11 is a nice sweet spot. Okay, maybe you'll go for -11 if you're not happy with the -14 LUFS for whatever reason. But now you're done with your track. It's really finished and you can render it out, and then you have your final master file. And this one you can again compare to your stereo mix. This is also a very interesting thing, a very interesting technique to figure out if all the changes you did during mastering were really worth it. Yeah, maybe you want to listen to the final EP now. That would be really great, of course. And it's called Linger and contains 3 ambient guitar improvisations. And you can listen to it for free on Bandcamp, for example, or buy it on Bandcamp or Amazon. Listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music. You know how it works, and you know that there are show notes underneath this video with all the links. There you also find the link to my official website, thegroundnoise.com. And I'm also on Blue Sky. If you want to follow me on Blue Sky, the link is also in the show notes. But that's enough for now. Don't forget to leave a like before you go. My name is Markus. I thank you very much for watching and hope to see you soon in the next one.